Something unusual is happening in the world right now. Across the globe, events are unfolding that are causing millions of people to ask a question that has echoed through history for centuries. Are we watching the early stages of biblical prophecy? The Middle East is once again dominating global headlines. Economic systems are rapidly shifting toward digital structures. Ancient regions mentioned in the Bible are appearing in news reports almost daily. And because of these developments, more people than ever are returning to the pages of Scripture to ask a simple but powerful question. Did the Bible describe conditions like these long ago? Now, before we go any further, it is important to say something clearly. This video is not about setting dates. It is not about predicting the exact moment prophecy will happen. Instead, this video is about examining the world we are living in right now and comparing it to what the Bible actually says. Because if the conditions described in Scripture are beginning to appear, then something remarkable may be happening. We may be watching history move closer to the moment the Bible calls the end of the age. But to understand why people are even asking this question, we need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture of what is happening across the world today. For much of modern history, biblical prophecy was rarely discussed outside churches or theological circles. But in recent years, something interesting has changed. Millions of people around the world have started searching again for answers about prophecy, revelation, and the future described in the Bible. Why? Because the world itself feels increasingly unstable. Wars are expanding into new regions. Major global powers are competing for influence. Economic systems are undergoing rapid transformation. At the same time, technology is evolving faster than at any point in human history. Artificial intelligence is advancing rapidly. Global digital networks connect billions of people instantly. Biometric identification systems are becoming more common, and digital financial systems are changing the way money moves around the planet. For many people, these developments simply represent technological progress. But for those familiar with biblical prophecy, some of these changes raise interesting questions, because several prophetic passages describe a future world that sounds surprisingly global, interconnected, and technologically advanced. For centuries, those descriptions seemed impossible, but today, they no longer do. And that reality is why many people are beginning to look again at ancient prophecies that once seemed distant or symbolic. One of the most fascinating elements of biblical prophecy appears in the book of Revelation. Revelation describes events that affect the entire world simultaneously. For centuries, that idea seemed unrealistic. Imagine trying to explain to someone living 2,000 years ago that billions of people could watch the same event at the exact same moment. That concept would have sounded like pure fantasy. Yet today it is completely normal. Live broadcasts reach nearly every country on Earth. Smartphones allow people in remote regions to see events happening thousands of miles away within seconds. Social media platforms spread information instantly across continents. The world has become deeply interconnected. This global connection also extends to financial systems. Money now moves digitally across borders within seconds. Banks communicate through vast international networks. Governments monitor economic activity in ways that would have been unimaginable in earlier centuries. And when readers look back at passages in Revelation describing global systems of authority and commerce, they notice something interesting. The infrastructure required for those systems now exists. For the first time in human history, it is possible for systems to operate on a truly global scale. One of the most discussed passages in prophecy appears in Revelation chapter 3. The passage describes a time when a powerful authority will control an economic system so thoroughly that people will not be able to buy or sell unless they participate in that system. For centuries, this sounded impossible. How could any authority control commerce across the entire world? But the modern digital economy has changed that conversation. Many governments are researching central bank digital currencies. Digital payment systems are replacing physical cash in many regions. Biometric identification technologies are expanding. Financial transactions are increasingly recorded and verified through complex digital networks. None of these technologies are inherently evil. In fact, many provide convenience and security, but their existence demonstrates something important. A global economic system with centralized oversight is now technologically possible. That realization is one reason prophecy discussions are increasing again, because people are recognizing that the world now has the infrastructure that could support systems once described only in ancient texts. Another reason prophecy discussions often focused on current events involves the nation of Israel. Throughout the Bible, Israel plays a central role in prophetic passage. Yet for nearly 2,000 years, Israel did not exist as a nation. After the destruction of Jerusalem in the 1st century, the Jewish people were scattered across the world. Many historians believed a restored Jewish nation was extremely unlikely. But in 1948, something extraordinary happened. Israel became a nation again. In a single day. This moment immediately reminded many readers of a question recorded in the book of Isaiah. The prophet asked, "Can a nation be born in a single day?" History shows that in 1948, the answer to that question was yes. Since then, Israel has remained one of the most politically and spiritually significant places on earth. Jerusalem sits at the intersection of global politics, religion, and prophecy. Whenever tensions rise around Israel, many believers begin revisiting prophetic passages connected to the region. Not because they claim to know the future, but because the Bible repeatedly emphasizes that events in this region will play a role in the final chapters of history. And that is why developments in the Middle East often capture the attention of those who study biblical prophecy. Before we move on, there is one more reason this conversation feels different now than it did in earlier generations. In the past, prophecy discussions often stayed abstract. People could talk about future kingdoms, future control systems, future conflict, and future deception. But those ideas still felt distant. Now, they do not feel distant. They feel possible. That shift matters when ordinary people see wars spreading across borders, when they hear daily conversations about digital identity, when they watch governments and corporations building systems of increasing oversight, and when they see Israel mentioned constantly in the headlines. The old prophetic passages suddenly feel more immediate. Even people who have never opened the book of Revelation begin wondering whether the Bible might have said something about times like these. And that is why videos like this are reaching so many people. Not because everyone agrees on the timeline, not because every headline is a fulfillment of prophecy, but because people sense that the world is changing in a serious way. The pace feels faster. The pressure feels heavier. The uncertainty feels deeper. And whenever that happens, thoughtful people start asking bigger questions. Where is history going? Why does the world feel like it is accelerating? And did God warn us that a season like this would come? Those questions are exactly why the next section matters. Because there is one prophecy detail many viewers already have in mind before we even say its name. It involves geography, it involves revelation, and it involves a location that has suddenly become part of modern conversation again. That is where we are going next. And this is where wisdom matters. A responsible prophecy discussion should do two things at once. It should pay attention to the signs of the times, and it should refuse to make reckless claims. That balance is important. If we ignore the world completely, we miss the relevance of Scripture. If we sensationalize every event, we damage credibility. So the goal of this video is not to force a conclusion. The goal is to lay out the pattern honestly, compare it with the Bible carefully, and let you, the viewer, consider the evidence with sober eyes, a clear mind, and an open Bible in hand. Thanks for watching, and be sure to follow for more. Have you ever looked at the world today and wondered if we reliving in a story that was written long ago? From ancient rivers to modern technology, some people are seeing connections that are hard to ignore. Let's dive into why conversations about biblical prophecy are growing louder than ever. When people who study prophecy hear about the Euphrates River, one specific passage comes to mind. The book of Revelation describes the Euphrates drying up to prepare the way for kings from the east. For centuries, this seemed impossible. The Euphrates is a legendary river, the lifeblood of ancient civilizations and modern nations. The idea of it just disappearing, it sounded like fantasy. But in recent years, something astonishing has happened. Satellite images and environmental reports show that water levels in the Euphrates are dropping dramatically. Large sections that were once deep and flowing are now shallow, with the riverbed exposed. Now, there are logical explanations for this. Climate change, massive dams, built upstream, and water being diverted for agriculture all play a part. But when you see headlines about the drying Euphrates, and you remember those ancient texts, it's natural to ask, is this just an environmental issue, or is it a sign of something bigger? No one should jump to conclusions, but the parallel between modern events and ancient prophecy is striking. It's not just rivers. It's our technology, too. Think about how fast the world has changed in the last 20 years. Artificial intelligence is everywhere. From our phones to our industries, digital ID programs are rolling out in various countries, linking our identities to our finances and government records. And financial technology is creating systems that can track transactions across the globe in an instant. For most of history, this kind of worldwide oversight was pure science fiction. Communication was slow, records were scattered. But today, information zips across continents in seconds. Massive databases store incredible amounts of data, and algorithms can analyze patterns across entire economies. Now, let's be clear. None of these technologies are inherently bad. They can make our lives more efficient, reduce fraud, and simplify complex systems. But when people read biblical passages like Revelation chapter 3, which describes a future system of global economic control, and then they see the very technology that could make such a system possible being built right now, it makes them think. The technology itself isn't the prophecy, but its existence shows that what was once considered impossible is now entirely achievable. And that realization has fueled a new wave of interest in what the Bible has to say about the future. So, why are these conversations happening now? It's because many of us feel it in our gut. The world is changing, and it's changing fast. Global alliances are shifting. Military tensions are rising in several key regions at once, and our political and economic systems feel unstable. When life feels uncertain, it's human nature to search for a bigger picture, a larger explanation for what's happening. Some turn to philosophy or politics. Many believers turn to scripture. The Bible talks about the rise and fall of nations, about wars and deception, but it also speaks of hope and ultimate restoration. When people see similarities between current world events and these biblical descriptions, they naturally start to connect the dots. This doesn't mean every headline is a direct fulfillment of prophecy, but it does mean people are paying closer attention than ever before. Whenever prophecy becomes a popular topic, it's crucial to approach it with wisdom and caution. History is full of people who confidently declared they knew the exact date of future events, only to be proven wrong. Jesus himself gave a clear warning. No one knows the day or the hour. That humility should guide us. The purpose of prophecy isn't to create panic or encourage wild speculation. It's to remind us that history is heading toward a conclusion that God has already foreseen. When you read these passages carefully, you find that they describe both difficult times and ultimate redemption. The story doesn't end in darkness. It ends with restoration. So let's step back and look at the larger patterns. We have global communication networks connecting billions of people. We have economic systems rapidly moving toward digital platforms. We have political tensions simmering in historically significant regions. And we have technology advancing at an exponential rate. Individually, each of these can be explained as a normal part of history. But when you put them all together and compare them to the conditions described in biblical prophecy, you have to wonder if the world is moving towards something scripture foretold long ago. Again, this doesn't mean the end is tomorrow, but it does mean that the global infrastructure, the very stage for these events, is now in place. For centuries, the systems described in prophecy seemed technologically impossible. Today, they are not, and that fact alone is enough to make anyone pause and think. Perhaps the most important truth about prophecy is often missed. It wasn't given just to satisfy our curiosity about the future. It was given to prepare us spiritually. The consistent message is a call to faithfulness, a reminder that history has a purpose, and a warning against becoming complacent. The ultimate goal of studying prophecy isn't fear, but awareness. Awareness that God is involved, that history isn't random, and that the future described in the Bible leads to redemption. So, are we seeing biblical prophecy unfold in our generation? The honest answer is, we can't know for sure. But here is what we do know. Every generation moves closer to the final chapters of the story. The signs we discuss today might be early indicators, or they might just be a part of the complex flow of history. Or maybe they're both. What matters most isn't speculating about dates. What matters most is our readiness. The Bible encourages us to live with awareness, faith, and hope. It describes a sequence of events, wars, shifting alliances, economic changes, and new technologies that create systems of global coordination and control. For most of history, the world simply wasn't connected enough for this to happen. Today, it is. The stage has been set. The question is not just whether the story is unfolding, but whether we are spiritually prepared if it is. The Bible's message remains steady, no matter how turbulent the world gets. History is going somewhere. And according to Scripture, the destination isn't chaos, but restoration, justice, and the renewal of all things. If the world we see today is truly moving toward that moment, then we may be approaching one of the most significant turning points in human history. Thanks for watching. If this gave you something to think about, please like and subscribe for more content like this. See you next time.